Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
David Miller always believed that a life shared by two people was built on small gestures. A cup of coffee left on the table before work, quick text messages exchanged in the middle of the afternoon, the simple, "I'm home," spoken when stepping through the front door, these details were, to him, the invisible glue holding a marriage together. So when he decided to buy a birthday gift for his wife, Melissa, he wasn't just looking for something beautiful, he wanted something that could symbolize a fresh start, a renewed commitment. He spent hours browsing store windows, comparing sparkle, weight, and shape, until he finally chose a sapphire necklace nestled in a small blue velvet box. To David, that necklace wasn't just a piece of jewelry, it was the physical embodiment of his hope to reignite the bond that seemed, little by little, to be growing cold. That morning, as he walked home with the little box hidden in his coat pocket, David felt an almost teenage anxiety. He'd already pictured the scene: he'd get home early, prepare a simple dinner, maybe open a bottle of wine, and when Melissa walked through the door, tired from the office, he'd present the gift as if revealing a secret he'd kept close to his heart. Deep down, he wanted to see her smile the way she used to years ago, when small gestures still filled her with delight. Driven by that nervous excitement, he pulled out his phone and called her. In an upbeat tone, he said, "I got your gift, Mel. I think you're really going to like it." On the other end of the line, the reaction wasn't what he'd expected. Instead of surprise or curiosity, there was a pause. Melissa replied coldly, almost mechanically, "David, I'm working late tonight. Don't wait up." It was only a few words, but they hit him like a door slamming in his face. Just 30 minutes earlier, she'd learned he had something special for her. Now, 30 minutes later, an unexpected obligation was keeping her away from home. Coincidence? David had always been a logical, technical man, trained to spot flaws in systems. And at that moment, his gut told him something was wrong, an error in execution, a bug disguised as an excuse. He put the phone away without pressing further, but his mind wouldn't stop racing. Working late had become a recurring phrase in recent weeks. It wasn't just the extended hours, it was the coldness in her voice. Melissa no longer seemed eager to get home, nor did she call to check if he'd eaten dinner. The distance between them showed in subtle details: the new perfume she started wearing only on meeting days, the makeup she applied early in the morning even when there were no important appointments, and her phone constantly turned face down on the table. All of it, which once seemed like vanity or routine, now sounded like pieces of an uncomfortable puzzle. David wasn't the type to hold on to doubts and wait. His impulsive nature wouldn't allow him to sit back for days, weeks, or months gathering evidence to confirm his suspicions. He operated the way he did during emergency IT support calls at clinics and hospitals: if something failed, he needed to identify and fix it immediately. That was his logic applied to everything, even matters of the heart. So, without much planning, he put his coat back on, slipped the little box into his pocket, and grabbed his car keys. There was no anger in the gesture, only quiet determination. If Melissa said she was working, he wanted to see it for himself. He wasn't looking for a fight, nor was he willing to swallow excuses. He wanted the truth, plain and simple. As he drove through the streets of Columbus, the jewelry box seemed heavier than it actually was. He remembered the saleswoman's look when he said it was a gift for his wife. "She's going to love it," the clerk had assured him. Now he wondered whether he'd actually give it to Melissa or if the necklace would become a symbol of something else entirely. His destination was straightforward: the hotel where, according to Melissa, her company's marketing conference was being held. A corporate event full of panels and meetings would perfectly justify the "working late" excuse. But his gut told him the conference might have a different kind of agenda. The hotel parking lot was full, packed with executives' cars and company vans emblazoned with colorful logos. David parked and walked through the lobby. The space was elegant, with thick carpeting, golden chandeliers, and people moving about with folders and name badges hanging from their necks. Right away, he noticed Melissa wasn't among the groups discussing projects near the bar. As he approached the mezzanine, he leaned discreetly against the railing and waited a few minutes, as if he were just another visitor waiting for someone. That's when the scene unfolded before him. Melissa appeared in the lobby, but she wasn't alone. She was walking beside Grant Whitmore, her boss, a man David had seen at previous events, firm voice, well-tailored suit, the kind of presence that drew attention anywhere. What bothered David most wasn't Grant's presence, but the way Melissa laughed at something he said. It was an intimate, unrestrained laugh, completely different from the cold tone she'd used with him on the phone just minutes earlier. They crossed the lobby unhurriedly, as if no one else existed, and headed straight for the elevators. David watched them step inside and, without hesitation, took the next elevator and pressed the same floor button. The hallway was quiet, muffled by carpet and soft lighting. David followed the sound of hushed laughter to the end of the corridor and saw them standing in front of room 1017. Melissa was rummaging through her purse, probably looking for her key card, while Grant made a comment that drew another muffled laugh from her. At that moment, David didn't need anything else. There were no reports, spreadsheets, or conferences, just up working late that had turned into a different kind of commitment. He didn't take photos, didn't call anyone, didn't gather proof. He tucked his phone back into his pocket and took a deep breath. Then, with firm steps, he approached and knocked on the door before it could close. Melissa spun around immediately, her eyes wide, her face draining of color in seconds. Grant froze, unsure how to react. David held up the blue box and, in a calm voice, said, "Happy early birthday, Mel. I bought this half an hour ago. You said you'd be working late, looks like your shift's already started." It was only the beginning of a confrontation that would change everything. Melissa stood frozen in front of the hotel room door, as if caught in the middle of a blatant contradiction. Her face, which moments earlier had been lit by a light laugh, was now pale, unable to hide her shock. Grant, meanwhile, tried to regain his executive composure, but David's sudden appearance shattered any pretense of authority. The hallway, silent and luxurious, seemed like the perfect stage for the scene unfolding. David, still holding the blue box between his fingers, watched them both with calculated calm. He didn't shout or gesture wildly, his weapon was irony. "Funny, Melissa," he said in a low but firm tone. "I was planning to surprise you tonight with this gift, but I guess you beat me to it and already scheduled another celebration. I just want to know, is the toast with wine or champagne?" Melissa took a step forward, trying to take control of the narrative. "David, wait, it's not what you think. Grant and I were just discussing an important project. The conference requires us to stay available late, Anne." "Late, in a hotel room?" David interrupted, raising an eyebrow. "Interesting approach to brainstorming. I imagine the agenda includes pillows and ambient lighting." With every sentence, Melissa shrank further. Grant cleared his throat, attempting to assert authority. "Mr. Miller, there's no need to turn this into a spectacle. We can talk calmly, like adults." David turned to him with a half-smile. "Like adults? Of course. So explain how you usually mentor your team. Is this part of the company handbook, or is it an exclusive advanced training session just for Melissa?" The embarrassment grew in waves. Hotel guests passing through the hallway slowed their steps, pretending not to listen but eyes fixed on the scene. Humiliation didn't need an audience, yet one was forming naturally. Melissa tried to cut in. "David, please, let's go somewhere else. I can explain everything." "Explain what?" he shot back. "Explain why you hung up so quickly this morning. Why you always turn your phone face down when you get home. Or why you never wear that new perfume when you're with me. Which version would you like to rehearse first?" Melissa brought a hand to her forehead, searching for words. Grant, realizing he couldn't control the situation, made a move to step away. But just then, the elevator dinged, and another figure appeared, an elegant woman in a dark dress holding an envelope. Her eyes scanned the hallway until they landed on Grant. "Grant, you left your wallet at the front desk," she said, walking toward them. "I texted you and you." Her sentence died before it finished. She stopped a few feet away, her eyes flicking between her husband and Melissa. The silence that followed was heavier than any accusation. David didn't miss the opportunity. "Ah, perfect. Now the business meeting has a special guest. I imagine this part of the project wasn't on the agenda, was it, Grant?" Grant's wife looked confused, but her expression mixed disgust and disappointment. "So this is how you fill your conference hours," she said sharply. "Congratulations, Grant. I always knew your ambition crossed lines, but I didn't expect it to be so pathetic." Melissa swallowed hard, trying to regain some control. "This isn't what it looks like. We're all jumping to conclusions." David let out a dry laugh. "You're right, Melissa. I really did jump to conclusions. I believed we still had a marriage. That there was still respect. But it seems all that's left is a poorly rehearsed play." He then opened the box and revealed the necklace, glinting under the hallway's soft light. "Look, I bought this for you, a symbol of our anniversary, our history. But now that I think about it, maybe this gift belongs more in the jewelry store display than around the neck of someone who's already swapped vows without even taking off the original ring." The necklace sparkled like a cruel mirror. Melissa tried to move closer, tears beginning to form. "David, please listen. I made a mistake, but we can talk. You don't understand the pressure, how much I—" "Pressure," he interrupted again, laughing bitterly. "Pressure is holding up a home, maintaining a marriage, believing every flimsy excuse. What you're feeling is just desire, the desire for more than you promised. And look, you got less than you imagined. Because now all of this," he gestured to her, Grant, and his wife, "has collapsed in a matter of minutes." Grant's wife dropped the wallet to the floor with a thud. She looked at her husband and said simply, "We're done, Grant. And if the company finds out about this, your career is finished too." David took a deep breath, tucked the necklace back into his pocket, and stepped back. "You know what? I'm not going to yell, beg, or cry. I'm just going to let you two explain yourselves, to the people who really matter. Grant, to your wife. Melissa, to the mirror." The silence that followed was tomb-like. Melissa, holding back sobs, tried to reach him. "David, wait, don't leave like this. We've had years together." He turned his back and walked toward the elevator. "Yes, Melissa. Years that just got summed up in a few minutes in a hotel hallway. Funny how time works, it takes decades to build trust and seconds to destroy it." The elevator doors opened, and he stepped inside without looking back. The scene he left behind was one of silent chaos, Melissa hunched over, Grant speechless, and his wife standing tall, already dialing someone on her phone. No more shouting was needed, the tension was all in the image of masks falling away. When he reached the lobby, David felt his breath grow heavy. His heart pounded, but not from doubt or fear. It was a strange mix of emptiness and peace, the clarity of someone who'd just seen the raw, unfiltered truth. Yes, it hurt, but it was a pain already pointing toward freedom. In that moment, with the blue box still in his pocket, he understood he wouldn't give her that gift. The necklace had another destiny. And life, from that hallway onward, would take a path neither Melissa, Grant, nor anyone else could control. It was the end of one chapter, and the seed of something new. David stepped out of the elevator as if surfacing from a dive that had lasted too long. The lobby air felt cleaner than the 10th floor hallway, yet it still carried a bitter aftertaste. Each footstep echoed on the marble tiles, and he felt as if he were living a scene someone might easily mistake for a movie, except there was no script here, only the raw pain of betrayal. He crossed the lobby and reached the parking lot, but before heading straight to his car, he paused for a few seconds. Once inside, he leaned on the steering wheel and took a deep breath. This wasn't just a confirmed suspicion, it was an entire piece of his life crumbling before his eyes. And yet, instead of collapsing, David felt fury give way to an odd clarity. Everything had suddenly become crystal clear, the cold replies, the unexplained overtime, the endless meetings. It all fit together now, and there was no room left for illusions. All that remained was deciding how to respond. That night, he didn't go home. He checked into a small hotel near downtown. He lay in bed wide awake, staring at the ceiling as the images replayed in his mind, Melissa laughing with Grant, the necklace in his hand, Grant's wife appearing like an unexpected judge of that farce. With each replay, the pain mixed with a sharp dose of sarcasm. Working late, he thought. Yeah, really hard work. The next morning, Melissa called dozens of times. David answered only once. Her voice trembled, almost pleading. David, please, we need to talk. You caught me off guard. I made a mistake, but it's not as simple as it seems. I still love you. He laughed, but not from joy. You still love me? Interesting. You have a peculiar way of showing it, don't you? Don't talk like that, she begged. It wasn't planned. It just happened. I was confused, lonely. Lonely? David cut in, his voice firm. So the solution to loneliness is now your boss? And here I spent months thinking your coldness was just exhaustion. You had energy, all right, just not for me. She fell silent, perhaps swallowing tears. I don't want to lose you. We can try therapy, we can rebuild this. David gripped the phone tightly, as if he could crush the lie along with it. Melissa, therapy doesn't fix character. I don't need a reconciliation manual, I need respect. And you threw that away in a hotel hallway. You know the cruelest part? You made me feel like an idiot. You made me believe I was paranoid. But in the end, I was right. I was always right. He hung up without waiting for a reply. Within hours, the story had spread through the company. Hurt and humiliated, Grant's wife had confided in close colleagues, and soon the company's ethics committee received a formal complaint. Hallway whispers and sideways glances began swirling around the incident. Melissa, once seen as a promising professional, now carried the weight of hushed rumors on her shoulders. And Grant, accustomed to automatic respect, now faced meetings with directors who looked at him as just another man brought down by his own arrogance. David watched it all from a distance, with no need to interfere. Revenge was unfolding on its own, like a row of dominoes he'd only needed to nudge at the start. That evening, Melissa showed up at his house, the same house that now felt strange to him. She found him sitting in the living room, staring at the blue box on the coffee table. David, she began, her voice choked. I came because I don't want to give up on us. I know I messed up, but I'm still your wife. We still have a history. Let's not throw it all away. He studied her in silence for a few seconds. Then he opened the box and held up the necklace. It's funny how things change in value, isn't it, Melissa? Yesterday, this was a symbol of our love. Today, it's just an expensive piece of jewelry with no owner. And you know what's worse? I still think it's beautiful. I just can't picture you wearing it anymore. She tried to move closer, tears streaming down her face. David, I know I was weak. I let routine pull me away from you. I felt alone, and when Grant came close, I let myself get carried away. But that doesn't mean I don't love you. Love, he repeated, almost laughing. Love is sticking together when it's hard. Love is remembering there's someone at home waiting for you before making up excuses. Love is respect. If what you call love is what I saw in that hotel hallway, then sorry, Melissa, I'd rather live without that kind of love. She dropped to her knees in a desperate gesture. I can change. Give me another chance. David took a deep breath. For a moment, he almost let himself be swayed by the sight of her there, vulnerable. But then the memory returned, her unrestrained laugh in the lobby, the knowing look she shared with Grant, the expensive perfume. He shook his head. Do you know the difference between you and me, Melissa? I don't need a second chance to be loyal. I already was, from day one. And you turned loyalty into a disposable option. So no. There's no second chance for something that should have been non-negotiable. She broke down sobbing. He stood up, picked up the necklace box, and slipped it into his pocket. I'm selling this tomorrow. And you know what's ironic? With that money, I'm starting something that actually matters, my own business. Something I'll be proud of. Unlike what you gave me yesterday. Melissa tried to pull herself together, but her expression showed she understood there was no turning back. David walked to the door, opened it, and looked at her one last time with resolve. Our story is over, Melissa. All that's left is the memory of a gift that was never delivered. She left slowly, as if each step carried the weight of a sentence. David closed the door behind her and, for the first time in a long while, felt he'd regained control of his own life. The pain was still there, but now mixed with something new, a sense of justice, of clarity. The storm had passed its peak, and even amid the wreckage, he knew there was room to rebuild. What Melissa didn't understand, and maybe never would, was that some choices can't be undone. And the most effective revenge, in the end, wasn't shouting, humiliating, or exposing. It was simply moving forward, letting her own mistakes echo on their own. In the days following the confrontation, each person's life took a different path, as if that night in the hotel hallway had been an unavoidable turning point. David, despite his pain, refused to let the wound become a prison. The next morning, he returned to the jewelry store with the blue box in hand. He handed back the necklace, explained he'd changed his mind, and accepted a full refund. The salesperson, surprised, tried to convince him to keep the gift for another occasion, but David calmly replied, "There's no another occasion for someone who wasted the first. Now this money will serve a real purpose." With that sum in hand, he took the first step toward a dream he'd always postponed, launching his own IT support business focused on small medical clinics. He already had the technical know-how, he just needed courage and capital. Ironically, the betrayal that had tried to destroy him ended up giving him the push he needed. Every keystroke, every signed contract, became his way of proving life could be rebuilt without relying on someone who failed to value his loyalty. While David began building his new life, Melissa faced the weight of consequences. At the office, her image as a model professional crumbled within weeks. Rumors about her affair with Grant spread with alarming speed, and no matter how much she denied it, the glances in the hallways made it clear, everyone knew. The company's ethics committee launched an internal investigation, and though she wasn't fired, Melissa was transferred to another branch in a much lower role, essentially a demotion. The woman who once strode confidently through the halls in high heels now went unnoticed, almost shrinking into herself. The attention she'd sought from Grant had been replaced by the shadow of a mistake she'd nurtured herself. At home, loneliness became her cruelest companion. David never returned. There was no reconciliation, no couples therapy. The divorce moved quickly, handled by the lawyer David contacted right after the confrontation. With no children involved, there were no custody battles or visitation disputes, just furniture, bills, and paperwork divided coldly, as if the marriage had become merely an administrative matter. Melissa, who'd believed she controlled everything, realized too late that she'd lost not only a husband but also the respect of her community and herself. Grant, meanwhile, faced his own downfall. His wife, firm and resolute, refused to accept his feeble explanations. She hired a prominent attorney and filed for divorce. She also reported the incident to the company board, attaching evidence and statements from employees who'd long suspected inappropriate conduct. The result was devastating. Grant lost his executive position, was reassigned to an irrelevant department, and months later, his quiet departure was announced in an internal memo. The man who'd loved being the center of attention was now remembered only as an example of what not to do. For David, the months that followed were a period of quiet rebuilding. His small business started with 1 clinic, then 2, and within a year, he had a solid client base. He learned to turn heartbreak into discipline. Every signed contract was a victory over the past, every client compliment a reminder that some people still recognized the value of his dedication. More than that, he rediscovered his peace. There were no more sleepless nights wondering about a phone turned face down, no more cold calls interrupting dinner. There was just him, his business, and a restored sense of dignity. Fate, however, had one last encounter in store, unexpected and symbolic. On a Saturday afternoon, months after the divorce, David parked his car outside a local grocery store. It was a modest car, but it represented his new chapter, bought with money earned through his own work. As he got out, he noticed a familiar figure slowly walking toward the store's exit. Melissa carried a reusable shopping bag, her expression weary, dressed simply without her former sparkle. For a moment, their eyes met. She stopped, surprised, and attempted a fragile smile. "Hi, David," she said softly, almost shyly. He remained composed. "Hi, Melissa." She hesitated, as if searching for words that didn't exist. "You look good." David nodded. "I am. I hope you are too." A brief, heavy silence followed. Melissa seemed to want to say more, maybe apologize again, maybe try to reopen a door already closed. But he gave her no opening. He simply offered a slight wave and continued on his way. As he entered the store, David smiled to himself. There was no anger, no desire for revenge, only the certainty that he'd moved on. The gift that was never delivered had become an investment in his future. The betrayal, instead of destroying him, had been the catalyst for his turnaround. Melissa, meanwhile, kept walking with her bag in hand, feeling the emptiness of what she'd lost. Grant had vanished from her life, the status she'd chased had crumbled, and the husband she'd once taken for granted had moved forward without looking back. The message was clear, almost etched into the air of that brief encounter: trust is a gift with no substitute. Once broken, no necklace, promotion, or excuse can restore it. David learned that dignity isn't negotiable, and Melissa learned that choices come at a high price when made at the expense of loyalty. The unexpected part wasn't the scandal or the separation, it was that, in the end, the greatest revenge didn't come from shouting or public exposure. It came from the quiet calm of a man who chose to value himself, turn pain into achievement, and let others' mistakes echo on their own. And so, each went their separate way, Melissa with the bitter memory of a gift she never received, Grant with the ruin of a tainted career, and David with the peace of someone who discovered that the greatest triumph after betrayal is rising stronger than before. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.